I'd like to call the February Business Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Ms. Marion Petita.
Here.
Ms. Buckland Chartier.
Here.
And Mr. Myron Rowe.
Here.
Item A, and this is insurance. Item A, to consider amending the Norris Insurance Consultants Incorporated contract to provide certificate management services for the LaFouche Parish School Board and take appropriate action. Ms. LaFawn.
Yes, ma'am. As you know, we have two separate contracts with Norris Consulting. One is for the management of our property and liability insurances, and the other is for the vetting of insurances for vendors and groups that are using our facilities. Recently, Mr. Norris has become very ill, and he is no longer able to fulfill his portion of the contract, which dealt with the verification of those insurances. So what we're recommending tonight is that we actually transfer the responsibilities for that piece of the contract over to Ms. Carmel Rowe, who will assume that role and will do so at the same cost that Mr. Norris's contract value was. So we're recommending tonight that you consider combining those two contracts under Norris Consulting and assign those to Ms. Carmel Rowe.
We have a motion. Thank you. Second. Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience? All right. Any? Okay. Well, let me get the second. Okay, that's second. Ms. Dropiche. Do we have any? Ms. Carmel, you want to say something?
I would just like to say thank you for considering that, and I would be honored to continue his work.
And I do want to say how that Mr. Norris was a very, very good person to the LaFouche Parish School Board. He did a wonderful job for us, and he'll be missed, but we know that you can feel his shoes, Ms. Carmel. So let's go ahead and vote. Are there any other board comments? Motion carried. Moving on to finance. A, receive report from LaPorte CPAs and Business Advisors, independent auditor, on the fiscal year 2021-2022 audit. And that is?
Yes, ma'am. This is Mr. Lester Lishu, who is the audit manager for the external audit for us for fiscal year 22. This is his first year with us as audit manager.
Good evening, everyone. Just a little background. I took over from Mickey, who left us, and transitioned a job to me. I co-led the public sector group with Mickey, so it was a natural transition to me. I do several other school boards and some large governments as well, so just a little background. I'm going to go over the audit report. It's about 160 pages, so I'll just start at page 1.
Okay.
Just a little humor there, actually. I'm going to go ahead and I like to skip right to the end. If you had a chance to look at the report, page 168 in the PDF of the audit, it actually summarizes 6 months of long work and a year's worth of LaFawn's efforts, all in one nice little page here. So if you have it, we can just go over it real quick. We issued an unmodified opinion, so that's a clean opinion. That's what you want to see. That means that no material issues with the financial statements at all. So that's the best you can get. The next layer of things we report on is the LLA is interested in internal control issues and compliance issues. So we didn't have any issues to report there. As a matter of fact, last year there was 2 issues that were resolved this year. So we proceeded and looked at those, and everything was cleaned up. So good there. And then the final step we look at is the federal awards. I know you had a presentation earlier about the federal awards, and we look at the programs. We look at Title I, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, and the ESF Fund, which was the new one that came out for COVID, the large COVID relief fund that came out. There's quite a bit of money there. So we could look at those federal programs and we issue our report on that, whether there were any issues with internal control or compliance for federal funds as well. So clean report there. So nothing to report there. So all in all, a clean report, a clean opinion. I do want to take a second. This is the part where I get to interject here about an audit. You know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work on LaFawn's part to get us through the audit. We're going back in time. You spend a lot of time talking about the future. We're actually looking at the past here. And so I just want to thank LaFawn for all of her efforts. And I want to share with you something, if it's in your power to help with this. Wall Street Journal last December 22nd came out and said we're down 300,000 accountants and auditors. What that means is everywhere I go, all those staff that I see in every school board and parish and municipality I go to, shorthanded. So just consider that there's a lot of pressure to get the finances right, but there's also a lot of other pressures, and I'm going to share with the story that just came out. I don't know if you read the news, but the legislative auditor released a report about another school board that had a small issue of $2 million going out to an incorrect bank account. And so they got it fixed. They resolved that. Just to point to you the kind of pressures that people are interested in the money, and one of the issues that, with the hurricane, a lot of FEMA money floating around, so there's a lot of bad actors looking to get to your money, and so your finance department is the safeguard against that, and all the controls in place. If I could put in a plug, they need help, they're a little short-handed, and just want to share that with you. Two more things. We issued our Bessie AUP report. We had a clean report there. That's the schedules that are required by Bessie. We look at the class sizes, the other PEP data, no issues there. And this was the first year back. It's called year 4 of the statewide AUPs. I don't know if you remember those from a couple of years ago. The legislative auditor reinstated those. We did them again. We had one small issue. It was about some bank reconciliations, a little bit of timing there of when they were expected to be done, but I think that's attributable to the turnover issue we just talked about, but it was corrected, so it shouldn't proceed any further. So that's our report. I'll take any questions if you have anything, but it took us a while to get here. We had a hurricane in the middle of the actual year that we're auditing, and then we had to deal with that financially and take care of the problems that it caused, not just physically, but on the books as well. So I'm glad to make it to the end, and got this to the legislative auditor. We'll submit it to the OMB, the feds. They're really interested in the federal audit we did. I'll take any questions if you have anything I can help with.
We thank you for your report, but we also want to thank Ms. LaFawn and her team for the great job.
Thank you. And I do want to introduce my team to you tonight because they've spent a lot of hours getting this report together. Chastity Email, who is the Assistant Business Manager, and then we have with us tonight our lead accountant, Lisa Terrio, Shasta Chasson, and our brand new lead accountant, Ms. Mallory Purple. And then we also have with us our internal auditor, Roxanne LaRousse. And all of those people, plus some, are involved in putting this report together. And Lester, I want to thank you and your team as well for working with us so graciously.
Thank you.
When we can find some teachers, we'll send you some more people for business.
Great, that's fantastic.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, letter B, to receive reports on proposals for emergency HVAC repair services packages and take appropriate action. Mr. Bias, okay.
Yes, good evening. Before you is the one proposal that we did receive. This was in the big group of emergency proposals that we sent out for emergency hurricane response. This did go out on multiple occasions. We did 3 separate advertisements and did receive one final response back on the last advertisement from Gallo Mechanical. So they have been reviewed and approved and recommended by Allsouth, and they are also a vetted vendor. And they will be doing services with our district for HVAC repairs. So as the year progresses, we'll become more familiar with our sites.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Wright, second, Ms. Carpenter. Any comments from the public? Any board comments or questions? Not, let's vote. Motion carried. Letter C, receive monthly budget to actual report for all major funds from the period of January 31st, 2023. Ms. LaFawn?
Yes, ma'am. As you know, this report is given based on the major funds that are identified through the audit process. So as of tonight, this report is updated to reflect the major funds identified in the fiscal year 2022 audit. Those include, of course, the general fund and the sales tax salary restricted fund, which has been on the list as a major fund, and then the inclusion and the addition of the salary supplement fund tonight in this report also. There are two other funds identified as major. Those are the 2021 construction fund, which Ms. Chasson gives that report to the Land and Facilities Committee meeting monthly, and then the Hurricane Recovery Fund, which is given at the Business Committee meeting but would be in a separate report. So that will come up next. So analyzing the budget report, we have collected to date 61.2% of the revenues that we projected for the general fund, which seems to be on target for this time of year. And we have expended or encumbered 77.6% of the budget, which is also on target. If you look over on page 3 of the report, you can see the ad valorem collections for this year are at 80.5% of the budgeted amount. I just want to remind you that ad valorem taxes, because those tax bills are due at the end of December, January is normally our largest collection month. So in January, we collected 80.5% of what we budgeted. Those are still running, even though they're meeting budget targets, they're still far below where we were pre-hurricane. Sales tax collections, we've collected 47.3% of the sales tax revenues, which were budgeted. We noted in the last couple of months a decline in those collections. We feel like that is leveling off after Hurricane Ida, but we're still running above where we were pre-hurricane in collections. So we have no concerns with that number. And we've collected 61.4% of the state MFP money, which is also right on target to meet budget expectations for the year. For expenditures, we have expended or encumbered to date an average of 78% of the general fund budget. And if you look over on page 15 of the report, I just want to call your attention, especially to the area where we provide maintenance services for the district. This provides all repair type services, maintenance and janitorial supplies, fixing of air conditioning systems, and all of those types of things. We're running above budget in that area, and a lot of that is tied to the increased costs associated with the items involved, supply items and things that are involved in making those repairs and those services to the building. So we'll monitor that closely through the end of this budget cycle, and then we may have to make some adjustments for fiscal year 2023-24 cycle. If you look on over to page 20, contains the information on the sales tax salary restricted fund. And you can see there the revenue, we've collected 47.3% of the total revenue in ad valorem, not ad valorem, sales taxes. That's an error on that page. Sales taxes, which falls right in line with the 47.3% that we've collected in the general fund. And then over on page 22, you have the new fund, which has been added, which is an ad valorem based salary supplement fund. And there again, it mirrors the general fund, where we've collected 80.5% of the revenue. In both of these funds, the expenditures that you see there, while they're at the budget max, that represents audit costs associated with the annual audit. The other activities in these funds are based upon collections, and that is simply a transfer to the general fund at the end of the year to support the costs for the salaries that we pay for them. So you'll see that as the year gets ready to close. And as always, if there are any questions on the report, I'll be glad to answer them, or if you need to contact me.
Questions? Thank you very much. There's the report. Letter D, to receive financial report on Hurricane Ida response and recovery to date.
Yes, ma'am. We have been approximately 18 months since the storm, and to date we have expended $69.9 million in the response and the recovery to that storm. And we have also dedicated through We'll have construction contracts, another 23.2 million. So currently, we have expended and obligated $93.1 million in response to the hurricane. That's not the end of it, but it does fall in line with our early projections for the storm, where we predicted that over the period of time we would expend about $120 million to recover from the storm. If you look at the report at the bottom, which is the report that we provide to Hancock Whitney Bank on who's serving as the trustee on the hurricane recovery loan, and they still hold monies for us that we have not drawn down yet. That draw will be coming very quickly. And you can see there that the FEMA reimbursements that we've received to date total $38.7 million.
Any questions? Not, thank you very much. And on to transportation. To receive a report of the transportation events from the previous month.
All right, so thank you. Just like that, the year has about 60 or less days of school left for us. So we're already preparing for the summertime. Summer Academy is coming, and we have 36 or 34 drivers signed up for Summer Academy already, which is great because last year was about the month before is when we started. So this year we're ahead to have those drivers ready for Summer Academy. Depending on how many students we have, we believe we'll be ready. Recruiting continues. This last month in January, we had 3 new hires, which thanks to HR pushed those guys through. And then starting off February, we're on to a good start. So hopefully this time next month, the report is another 3 new drivers. Right now, we're at 2 for February. The drivers are the biggest part of it. They keep pushing through daily and just keep coming up with more solutions. Our focus now is recruiting and also looking at next year to see how we can make routes more efficient and work better for the schools for timelines of picking up, making sure the stops that we have are convenient for parents, but also lay inside of our policies and procedures for the system. When it comes to breakdowns, we're looking at on average, about 3 per week. That's a breakdown for the day or a part of a day. When a breakdown does happen, a spare or alternates are used in that case. In this last week, we've had, or the last month, we've had 7 buses that were out for more than 3 days or so. And it varies from a larger engine issue to waiting on parts to come in. But anytime that happens, there's a spare that's used, or we run alternates in any given moment to make sure all the students are covered. And right now, at this point in the parish, there's no buses that have to double back for a return route. When they pull up, they leave out, and nobody has to go back to get another load, which is a good moment to be in. Even with on average 3 to 4 drivers out daily, it depends. It's a little bit less than that usually. We can still do the numbers of the students without having to double back and have students waiting for another bus to do a route and get back to the school, which is a good one to be at. Any questions?
So I have a question for you about the breakdowns. Mm-hmm. Are we seeing those averaging on the buses that are the older buses? Or are we seeing them even having problems with the newer ones that we've added to the fleet?
Older buses. Older buses are the issues right now, and it varies from engine issues to electrical issues. One thing that the company has told me is that the harnesses that are on the older buses are the issues of trying to find which wire is shorting out. And that's usually the problem, a wire shorting out. And sometimes when that does happen, the whole board will light up on the bus, and they got to search the wire. So they're in the process of trying to find more of the harnesses so they can have a better supply so they can just keep changing out.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and if you don't know the answer, I understand. Do you know approximately how many of the old buses we still have in the fleet?
There is, I would say, 20 to 30 that are older, 2010, 2005 older buses. Anything, and I'd say older, I'd say anything older than 2012, older bus. No problem.
Any questions? Yeah, you took both my questions. Thank you. Okay. There are no other questions. Meeting is adjourned.